Ladies and gentlemen, today we're diving into the depths of history, exploring TNT in a way that your school textbooks dared not venture. Now, I know what you're thinking. History is just a bunch of dates and dead people. But I assure you, the tales we're about to unfold are as spicy as a good plate of doubles and just as messy. So sit back, relax, and prepare to be mildly shocked, slightly amused, and maybe even a little bit more educated as we explore the parts of TNT's past that most people have conveniently forgotten or never knew in the first place. Number 1. Merikens settlement. Let's kick things off with the Merikens. No, not some off-brand American candy, but a group of African-American soldiers who fought for the British in the War of 1812. Their reward? A one-way ticket to the humid paradise of Trinidad. They were given land in the deep south of the island, far from the hustle and bustle of Port of Spain. I'm sure they were thrilled to exchange their guns for hoes. And I'm talking about the farming tool here, people. These Merikens established communities that are still standing today. Who knew that fleeing one oppressor could get you a nice piece of Caribbean real estate? Number 2. Cedros Peninsula's ancient inhabitants. Next, let's talk about Cedros, a place known for its picturesque beaches and ancient human remains. Yes, you heard that right. Forget what you know about the Caribbean being a new world discovery. Cedros was popping long before Columbus got lost and stumbled upon the wrong continent. Archaeologists found bones dating back 7,000 years, proving that even back then, people were smart enough to pick a tropical island for their staycation. And yet, it took European centuries to figure out what our ancient ancestors already knew. Trinidad is the place to be. Number 3. Cedula of population. Moving on to 1783 and the famous Cedula of population, which was basically Spain's version of a desperate dating ad. Wanted, French Catholics. Must bring enslaved labor. Apply within. Trinidad was pretty empty back then, so the Spanish government decided to throw open the doors and let in anyone who was Catholic and spoke French, because why not? This led to a flood of settlers who brought with them culture, wealth, and unfortunately, a whole bunch of enslaved Africans. But hey, nothing like a forced population boom to kickstart your economy, right? Number 4. The water riots of 1903. Now, let's jump to 1903, when the people of Port of Spain decided they'd had enough of the government's nonsense. You see, the British colonial rulers thought it would be a brilliant idea to start charging people for water. That's right. On an island surrounded by water, they figured they could make a quick buck off the stuff falling from the sky. The people weren't having it, and the result? The water riots. Things got so heated that the angry mob burned down the Red House, the seat of government. Talk about a hot take on public policy. Number 5. Indigenous resistance. It's a fact, of course, long before the British or the Spanish showed up, the indigenous peoples of Trinidad were already here, minding their own business. That is until the Europeans decided to crash the party. Enter Chief Hairima, a Napuyo leader who wasn't about to let some foreign invaders tell him what to do. He led several rebellions against the Spanish in the 1600s. While his efforts ultimately didn't stop colonization, you've got to admire the guy's never say die attitude. Or maybe it was more like never say anything in Spanish. Number 6. Short-lived British occupation of the Sister Isle. Now let's sail over to Tobago, the island equivalent of a hot potato in the colonial game of who owns this piece of land today? Trinidad's Sister Isle changed hands more times than a cricket ball in a test match. The French, Dutch, and British all took turns claiming it, like some sort of European vacation rental. The British finally won the tug-of-war in 1814. But not before the island's inhabitants had developed a serious case of identity crisis. I mean, who wouldn't be confused with so many new national anthems to learn? Number 7. Oil discovery and economic transformation. On to 1910, when Trinidad struck oil. Literally, suddenly, everyone forgot about sugar and cocoa plantations, because who needs chocolate when you have black gold? The discovery of oil transformed Trinidad from a sleepy colonial outpost into a bustling, money-making machine. Funny how the sweet smell of crude oil can make people forget about sugarcane. And just like that, Trinidad found itself on the world stage, rubbing elbows with the big players. Who knew that beneath our scenic landscapes lay the key to economic independence and a lot of foreign interest? Number 8. The Black Power Revolution. Let's fast forward to 1970, a time when the youth of TNT decided that enough was enough. This revolution wasn't just about a catchy slogan. It was a full-blown demand for change. They wanted equality, respect, and a whole lot fewer reminders of colonial oppression. The government was so rattled they declared a state of emergency. But, as they say, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, especially when the genie is calling for your resignation. The revolution might not have toppled the government, but it sure as hell made them listen. Number 9. The Tapia House Group. Next up is the intellectual hipsters of Trinidad's political scene in the late 60s. While everyone else was still wearing bell-bottoms, these folks were already thinking about constitutional reform. They gathered in a house, named Tapia, of course, and began crafting ideas that would eventually shape the nation's future. They might not have had the most seats in parliament, but they sure had the most interesting conversations. If only Twitter had been around back then, these guys would have been trending for days. Number 10. The rise of the steel pan. Finally, let's talk about TNT's gift to the world of music. Born out of necessity during World War II when traditional drums were banned because who needs a beat when you're at war? Local musicians turned trash into treasure, literally. They took discarded oil drums and created the steel pan, an instrument that not only sounds amazing but also symbolizes the resilience and creativity of the Trinidadian people. So the next time you hear the sweet sounds of a steel band, remember, this music came from the heart, the soul, in a really good recycling program. So there you have it, folks. A whirlwind tour of T&T's history, filled with the kind of drama, resilience, and innovation that makes our twin islands truly unique. These stories might not be the ones you hear in the tourist brochures, but they're the ones that make us who we are today. And remember, history isn't just about the past, it's the foundation of our future. And if we've learned anything from this, it's that Trinidadians and Tobagoanians are experts at turning adversity into opportunity. And yes, I know I said that funny don't laugh. We have to know how to be a little fun along the way. Thank you, and be sure to share these facts at your next line. You're welcome in advance for the impressively skeptical looks you're about to get, like where you hear